And on the other side, you have the guy running in New York, Mandami, right? Okay, who's like a straight-up communist. I mean, he is. He talks about, you know, the things that communists say. I mean, he wants free grocery stores, free buses.
Bill Maher just went after Zoran Mamdani, and it's downright hilarious. The comedian and talk show host ripped into Mamdani's far-left agenda, calling his New York victory the best present Republicans could possibly hope for. Maher's takedown of Mamdani's politics isn't just critical, it's sharp, ruthless, and genuinely laugh-out-loud funny. You definitely don't want to miss this one, so let's get right into it.
Bad ideas, and again, this ugly streak.
Well, you look
ugly streak of anti-Semitism.
Who's the most popular politician on the left?
AOC? I don't know.
One of, but who's, you know, Bernie is
Bernie, yeah.
Bernie is, I mean, he's not a capitalist, you know?
No, he's not, and he's also not president.
He's not, but
never would be.
But neither is Mamdani.
No. No, but he will, trust me, he will be featured in the campaign commercials.
But they're going to feature people, they boogeyman everybody.
Yeah, but you don't have to boogeyman him. He does it to himself.
Maher is absolutely right. Republicans don't need to invent a boogeyman out of Zoran Mamdani. He does that himself every time he speaks. With Mamdani on track to win the New York mayoral race, critics say his victory would be a political goldmine for Republicans, giving them endless fuel to argue that the Democratic Party is drifting toward full-blown socialism. Mamdani claims he's just a democratic socialist, but that label doesn't reassure anyone outside his own echo chamber. And Bill Maher isn't buying it for a second. To him, Mamdani represents the kind of far-left idealism that might sound admirable in theory, but ultimately hands conservatives exactly what they want.
This must be horrible for a guy like you, who you spent your whole life talking about how government tries to do too much, which it does, and spends too much. And here you have Trump, who is the Republican, who is aggrandizing more power than anybody, as we just talked about. And on the other side, you have the guy running in New York, Mandami, right? Okay, who's like a straight-up communist. I mean, he is. He talks about, you know, the things that communists say. I mean, he wants free grocery stores, free buses.
I want him to win.
You want him to win?
On the surface, it all sounds utopian, the kind of feel-good rhetoric that wins hearts and headlines with ease. But dig a little deeper, and that dream quickly reveals itself as a potential nightmare. Mamdani's vision might thrill idealists, but for those who've witnessed socialism fail in real life, it feels like a haunting déjà vu dressed up as progress.
Every 20 years or so.
Wait.
We need every 20 years or so, we need a conspicuous, confined experiment with socialism so we can crack it up again. Socialist slogan used to be, workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. The new socialist slogan is, trust us, this time it won't be a mess.
Socialism has failed so many times that most people wouldn't go near its ideas with a 10-foot pole except, of course, for younger voters who find its utopian promises impossible to resist. The issue with socialism isn't just greed. It's human nature itself. People need motivation to innovate, create, and move society forward. When competition disappears and everyone is rewarded the same, productivity fades, bureaucracy expands, and corruption takes root. Before long, the system that claims to bring equality ends up producing inefficiency and resentment instead. History has proven this time and again. When the state tries to control everything, it eventually collapses under its own weight. Mamdani's policies, packed with free handouts and heavy government control, might sound compassionate in theory, but they fall apart in reality. Without economic freedom, progress grinds to a halt and everyone ends up suffering equally, just not in the way they imagined.
So, you know, when the post-war Labour government in Britain was about to get started, one of their leading lights was a socialist named Nurian Bevan. He said, what could go wrong? He said, we have a nation bedded on coal, surrounded by fish. It would take an organizational genius to have a shortage of either. In 3 years, they had a shortage of both. That's socialism.
Britain serves as a perfect cautionary tale. In the early 1900s, the country eagerly embraced socialist ideas, promising equal opportunity, fair wages, and a just distribution of wealth. It all sounded noble, even revolutionary at the time. But within a few decades, the reality was far from the utopia people had envisioned. Industries that once thrived on private innovation were nationalized and suffocated by endless bureaucracy. Productivity collapsed, inflation skyrocketed, and the economy slowed to a crawl. The equality they fought for ended up spreading poverty instead of prosperity. By the 1970s, Britain had earned the nickname the sick man of Europe. It wasn't until Margaret Thatcher's free market reforms that the nation finally began to recover.
And one of the things that we've said, beyond saying that we're going to make this a sanctuary city for LGBTQIA+ workers, beyond saying that we're going to establish an office of LGBTQIA+ affairs, is also that we're going to provide $65 million in funding for gender-affirming care, the same amount of funding the federal government threatened to pull out from local providers for that kind of work. And in this moment especially, if we want to fight the Trump administration, we have to do so by fully funding our own services, taxing the wealthiest New Yorkers and corporations.
Britain stands as a powerful warning from history. In the early 1900s, the nation enthusiastically adopted socialist ideals, promising fairness, equal opportunity, and a balanced share of wealth for everyone. It sounded inspiring, almost revolutionary. But within a few decades, that dream fell apart. Once thriving industries were nationalized and buried under layers of government control. Productivity plunged, inflation exploded, and the economy slowed to a near standstill. The equality they fought for ended up spreading hardship rather than prosperity. By the 1970s, Britain had earned the grim title of the sick man of Europe. It wasn't until Margaret Thatcher's push for free market reforms that the country finally began to pull itself back on track.
He has attacked you personally and publicly like this.
He's not a socialist. He's a communist, okay? This is not a socialist, man. This is a communist.
I don't like to see a communist become mayor, I will tell you that.
I call him my little communist. He's my little communist mayor. We should never be in a position where we're talking about a communist.
We're going to end up with a communist mayor. It's not even believable, my beautiful New York. I think if a communist takes over New York City, I think that's a gift to the Republican Party.
Last time you were on this program, you were unequivocal in saying you do not like capitalism. But Trump, just in those remarks there, I counted, called you a communist 8 times. Are you?
No, I'm a democratic socialist. I've said that time and again.
There's no sugarcoating it. Donald Trump isn't the one turning Zoran Mamdani into a political boogeyman. Mamdani is doing that all on his own. He's proposed city-owned grocery stores and free public transportation, policies that lean heavily toward government control of the economy. While he insists he's just a democratic socialist, his words and goals often echo the tone and ambition of far-left movements. Even if his intentions sound admirable, his ideas only strengthen the perception that Democrats are sliding closer to socialism. Simply put, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, you know exactly what it is.
What I've found is that this vision of democratic socialism, it's one that often comes back to what Martin Luther King said decades ago. A vision of, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, there must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. Here in New York City, wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, 1 in 4 are in poverty. 500,000 kids go to sleep hungry every night. It's untenable to live with this kind of a divide. We have to actually have a politics that puts working people first.
Now that's where things get interesting. Mamdani's message might sound fresh to some, but it's really just the same old script politicians have been using for generations. They promise equality, fairness, and opportunity, dressing their words in emotional appeals and cherry-picked statistics to inspire hope. But once they gain power, the mask slips, and their true agenda becomes clear policies that punish success and smother growth under layers of regulation. America doesn't need that, and neither does New York. This country has flourished because of capitalism, innovation, competition, and personal freedom, the very foundations of its prosperity. So why would anyone believe those same failed ideas would suddenly work here? If history has taught us anything, the answer is obvious. They won't, and Bill Maher, to his credit, knows that better than most.
Assemblyman, you're running for mayor of New York and not prime minister of Israel, but you've made inflammatory statements like calling Israel an apartheid state and questioning its right to exist as a Jewish state. Just this week, you were evasive with a reporter about condemning Hamas. Given New York has the largest Jewish population outside of Israel, why should voters who see this as a moral red line trust your clarity and judgment?
Well, I really appreciate this question and an opportunity to just clear up, I think, a number of misconceptions. First and foremost, you're right. I am running to be the mayor of the city, and this city will be the focus of my administration, ensuring that we make this a city everyone can afford and everyone knows that they belong to. And also, millions of New Yorkers, myself included, care deeply about what's happening in Israel and Palestine.
Did you notice how he completely sidestepped that question? Classic politician behavior. When confronted with something uncomfortable, they dodge it entirely and drown the moment in a flood of empty words. Gavin Newsom does it with a grin. Kamala Harris has practically turned it into performance art, and AOC delivers it like a perfectly rehearsed monologue. Now, Zohran Mamdani has officially joined that club. His evasive response on the issue of Israel wasn't just a harmless deflection, it was telling. It revealed exactly what kind of leader he'd be if he ever became mayor of New York. One who avoids taking firm positions when they matter most. Instead of honest clarity, we get vague moral posturing and politically safe sound bites. And that's the real danger, not what he says, but what he refuses to say. Because in politics, silence and evasion often speak louder than words.
I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Well, it wasn't so much his aunt as his dad's cousin, but, semantics. Douglas, is he ready to lead?
No, in absolutely no way is he ready to lead, and that was just another reminder of it. This is such a self-involved little narcissist with so little going for him.
And that's exactly how the game is played. Politicians spin slightly exaggerated, emotionally charged stories to tug at people's hearts and win their votes. It's a time-tested tactic straight out of the political playbook. For Democrats who've perfected the art of identity politics, Zohran Mamdani's story is a perfect fit. It's emotional, symbolic, and crafted to make him seem like the face of progress and compassion. The party will embrace it completely, presenting him as the voice of the marginalized and the moral compass of New York. But those who look beyond the emotional packaging see it for what it is, another well-rehearsed performance. They won't be fooled by poetic speeches or touching backstories. They understand that good storytelling doesn't equal good leadership. Mamdani's narrative might enchant idealists, but to realists, it's pure political theater beautifully staged, cleverly written, but ultimately empty where it matters most.
But he even decides to turn the memory of 9/11 and the 3,000 Americans murdered that day into a story about his aunt and the subway. It's interesting, like so many things that this smarmy candidate does, he makes it about himself and it all turns out to be untrue anyway. It seems to the extent that he had any such aunt in question, she wasn't in New York at the time, and in any case, didn't wear the headscarf.
So it turns out Zohran Mamdani's heartwarming backstory doesn't hold up so well under closer inspection. But in a deep blue Democratic stronghold like New York, things work differently. Loyalty often outweighs logic, and Mamdani seems ready to glide to victory despite the cracks in his narrative. The real question isn't whether he'll win, it's what happens when the spotlight fades and the campaign slogans lose their shine. Running on feel-good promises is one thing. Governing a city as complex and divided as New York is something else entirely. Watching how Mamdani handles that reality will be very telling. In the end, his rise isn't a triumph of progress, it's a warning. Behind the polished speeches and socialist rhetoric lies an ideology history has already exposed as dangerous. Bill Maher's concerns are valid. If Mamdani leads New York down that path, it won't just damage the Democrats, it could redefine them. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.